Welcome to Strong Legends, daily sci-fi stories that fuel your mind. Subscribe and join the legend.
The endless hum of thrusters and the metallic scent of ionized air were the first things Clara Jung noticed as she stepped onto Dock 7B of Aurora's Edge. Cargo ships, sleek freighters from Earth's outer colonies and battered haulers from the fringe worlds, docked side by side, their hull plating scarred by cosmic debris. Overhead, a tangle of service gantries clanked and hissed, maintenance drones darting between them like mechanical fireflies. Clara wiped grease from her goggles and adjusted the strap of her tool belt. In 5 years aboard this orbital station, she had patched more ruptured hull seams than she could count, and coaxed countless temperamental AI cores back from the brink of meltdown. Yet tonight, as she stepped off the crew airlock, she felt a jolt of anticipation. The comm panel had been insistent, a distress beacon the likes of which Clara had never seen. She followed the flickering orange lights to the far end of the dock, where emergency flares bathed everything in a pulsing blood-red glow. There, towering over a cluster of startled cargo loaders, was a creature out of myth and nightmare. Its body was the size of a medium freighter, a sinuous dragon figure with scales that refracted light like spilled oil, emerald at the leading edge of each scale, shifting seamlessly to cobalt toward the trailing edge. It hovered a foot above the grated floor, powerful wings folded tight against its flanks. Each exhalation released a cloud of vapor that danced in the airlock's laminar flow. Perched atop its broad shoulders, nestled against a high saddle cushioned, with alien textiles, lay a second dragon, much smaller and grievously wounded. Her scales were pale as moonstone, marred by fractures where faint glows pulsed weakly, like dying stars. Her wide amber eyes fluttered open once, then closed again, each shallow breath a labor she might not survive. The larger dragon, its eyes the color of smoldering embers, let out a low, resonant growl. Clara felt the dock tremble beneath her boots. Beside the creature, an alien figure dismounted with desperate care. He was tall and lean, his crimson scales patterned with silvery filigree. A mane of iridescent white hair cascaded from his angular skull, framing leonine jaws and eyes that burned with anguish. "Mechanic?" he said, voice hoarse from anguish, but clear in the station's universal translator. "My mate. She is dying. Without help, she will not last until we reach our homeworld." Clara's hand drifted to the plasma torch at her hip. She swallowed. "Dragons aren't native to human biology," she said, circling to assess them both. "But life is life. Show me where she hurts." The alien, Lyrics, nodded, sweeping a pale hoof aside as he guided the wounded dragon toward a maintenance cradle that Clara had requisitioned months ago. It was designed for heavy loads. She'd never imagined using it for living creatures. Clara knelt beside the cradled dragon. The translucent starfire crystal embedded in her chest, a bioluminescent organ central to her species' vitality, flickered, its light dim and erratic. Fine fissures webbed its surface, and Clara could almost feel the jagged pain it must be causing Seraphine. "What happened to her?" she asked, gently brushing aside a strand of opalescent hair from Seraphine's. Brow Lyrix's jaw tightened. "We were ambushed by space pirates near the Veil Nebula. They stole our cargo, rare star amber crystals, and wounded her to force me to surrender the starfire." He bowed his head. "She protected me, Clara. She saved my life." His voice cracked. Clara's heart clenched. She had lost as much as anyone to the cold calculus of space brigands. "I'll do what I can," she said, voice firm. "But I'll need calm. This won't be a simple patch-up." Lyrix drew a slender satchel of equipment from his traveling pack, a set of organic sensors, biowire probes, and a vial of silvery fluid. "I brought everything I could." His claws trembled as he handed her the tools. "Good," Clara replied, setting to work. She clipped biowire leads to monitoring ports along Seraphine's flank, connecting them to her portable diagnostic console. Data scrolled across the screen, heart rate irregular, energy output collapsing, vital signs slipping below minimum thresholds. A low alarm beeped. Lyrics knelt beside Clara, his wing brushing the platform as though seeking comfort. If she dies, his voice broke into a strangled whisper. Our entire clan will reject me. Clara met his gaze. I won't let that happen, she promised. I need to stabilize her first, buy us time. Then we figure out how to heal that starfire crystal. He nodded, hope, fragile as gossamer, flickering in his ember eyes. Above them, the station's loudspeaker crackled. Dock 7B locked down. Unauthorized biohazard detected. All non-essential personnel stand clear. Clara didn't flinch. I'm an essential asset tonight, she muttered, more to herself than to Lyrics. She tapped commands, overriding the lockdown for a single access corridor to her workshop. Follow me, and try not to let station security see the paperwork. She glanced at Lyrics. You look like you survived a war. I think I can talk them out of this. As she led them away, the crimson flares of the dock faded behind them. Into the clamoring shadows of corridors and bulkheads they went. Clara Jung, at the helm, determined to defy every rule in the station's manual, and perhaps the laws of life itself, to save a dragon on the edge of death. The heavy blast doors of Dock 7B slid shut behind them with a pneumatic hiss, sealing Clara Jung, Lyrics, and Seraphine inside her private repair bay. The workshop was cavernous, its high ceiling crisscrossed by support struts festooned with diagnostic cables and power conduits. Overhead floodlights hummed softly, casting a clinical glow over wall panels bristling with tools, plasma welders, servo actuators, synaptic bioscanners, and tangles of bioluminescent fiber. Clara guided them past a cluster of workbenches to a reinforced maintenance cradle she'd rigged for heavy cargo. Hydraulic pistons hissed as she lowered the platform to floor level. Seraphine's breathing grew more labored with each shallow inhale. Her chest rose in pulsing waves beneath fractured, pale-gleaming scales. Lay her here, Clara murmured, pressing a gloved hand to Seraphine's flank. The dragon's skin was cool, almost damp. Beneath it, she could feel the gentle throb of residual life energy, weakening by the second. Lyrics knelt beside his mate and brushed a talon over her forehead. She's been carrying that starfire crystal for centuries, he said, voice thick with sorrow. It's bonded to her life force. When it fractures, she... He let the sentence hover in the air, unfinished and heartbreaking. On a nearby bench lay Lyrics' satchel of alien gear, organic sensors that resembled twisted filaments of moonlight, biowire probes spun from living metal, and a vial containing iridescent silver fluid, an engineered serum of his own design. Clara removed her gloves and exchanged a nod with Lyrics. Let's see what we're working with. She set her tool belt aside and slid a hollow screen into view, its ghostly interface shimmering as she tapped in override codes. The screen split into tri-pane diagnostics: vital signs, energy output, and crystal integrity. Seraphine's heart rate was barely perceptible. Her life energy output curve sloped toward zero. The starfire crystal's structural coherence read critical. A red warning bar blinked across the interface. Clara took a steadying breath. I can stabilize her vitals with a nanite infusion, she said, pointing to a portable injection rig mounted on a rolling trolley. But the real challenge will be repairing that crystal. Conventional biofusion can't touch alien star matter. Lyrics' silver filament whiskers quivered. Then we must meld your nanites with my biowire probes. It's untested, but it may give the nanites the pattern recognition they need to reconstruct the crystal's lattice. Clara's mind raced. She had designed the infusion rig to repair cybernetic implants, not crystalline organisms. But the principle was similar. Nanites swarming to rebuild damaged structures at the molecular level. She wheeled the rig closer, its exterior panel glowing with status indicators. First, she said, clipping a biowire probe to Seraphine's cervical tendon, the only place soft enough to accept it. We need to monitor her neurological impulses. I need real-time feedback on how her biocrystal syncs with her central nervous system. She connected the other end to the rig's neural uplink port. A soft cascade of data flickered across the hollow screen. Seraphine's eyes fluttered open, golden and unfocused. A soft, keening hum resonated from her throat. Clara knelt by the cradle and placed a hand on the dragon's snout. "I'm here," she whispered. "Just rest." Next, Lyrics inserted a second biowire into the starfire crystal's outer sheath. The crystal's luminescence, once a steady, warm glow, sputtered as if gasping for breath. The biowire's living metal, filaments coiled gently around the crystal's fractures like soothing fingers. Clara took a vial of his silvery serum and loaded it into the rig's injector. "This fluid contains catalyst proteins tuned to both human-engineered nanites and alien biowire," she explained. "It'll help the nanites bond to the crystal without treating it as hostile." She swiped her wrist to initiate the infusion. Sequence. Lights on the rig blinked green, then yellow, then ominous red. A high-pitched whine began in the machine's core. "We're getting feedback loops," Clara said, brow furrowed. "The nanites are alive, but they're destabilizing. I need to adjust the repatterning algorithm." She tapped furiously on her hollow keyboard, rewriting code on the fly. Lyrics watched anxiously as the infusion nozzle lowered toward Seraphine's chest. "Hurry," he urged. "Each second she remains like this, the bond weakens further." Clara's fingers flew. Over the virtual keys, she initiated a corrective subroutine, sending a pulse of electromagnetic resonance through the nanites. The whine of the rig shifted to a resonant hum, synchronizing with Seraphine's own bio-oscillations. On the screen, the warning bar receded, slightly, and the crystal integrity gauge crept from critical to severe. Seraphine stirred, a low rumble trembling in her throat. Her eyes opened fully, revealing pain but also recognition. She fixed Clara with a gaze that was more intelligent than any machine Clara had ever serviced. In that moment, Clara felt the gravity of what she was attempting, merging human nanotech, alien biowire, and an ancient dragon's life essence. "You see that?" Lyrics whispered. "She knows you're trying to save her." Clara nodded, voice firm but soft. "I've got her stabilized for now. But this is only the beginning. If we want to fully heal the crystal, I'll need to bring her into the main workshop. I need access to the graviton stabilizers and full-spectrum resonators." She glanced at Lyrics. "Do you trust me with her life?" He bowed his head, crimson scales gleaming under the workshop lights. "With my mate's life, I trust no one but you." Clara rose, already calculating her next moves. Beyond the blast doors lay her main lab, equipped for starship overhauls and AI reconstructions, not dragons. Yet here was Seraphine's only chance. Clara hit the comm panel to override the station's lockdown, her mind straining to anticipate every variable. Time was slipping away, and with Seraphine's life, and perhaps the future of dragonkind, hanging in the balance, Clara A. Jung prepared to push her genius beyond anything the universe had yet seen. The hum of the graviton stabilizers thrummed through Clara's bones as she guided Seraphine's cradle into the heart of her main workshop. Massive fusion coils lined the walls, and ceiling-mounted resonators pulsed with low-frequency light. Here she had rebuilt starship engines and rebooted AI cores. Yet now she prepared to merge cutting-edge nanites with an ancient, living starfire crystal. Clara crouched before Seraphine's prone form and placed a gloved palm over the dragon's fractured chest plate. The starfire crystal, now housed in a biogenerative sheath of white bone, flickered in fitful pulses. Beside her, Lyrics assembled the biowire probes into his crystalline stabilizer, a polished conduit crowned with strands of living metal. "Once we begin," Lyrics murmured, "there is no turning back. The nanites will rewrite her cellular matrix in real time." His voice held both awe and fear. Clara activated the workshop's safety seal. A transparent force field slid into place around the cradle. "Containment is critical," she said, swiping to bring up her control console. "Any leakage of the nanites or star energy could, well, let's just say we don't want to find out the hard way." She loaded the infusion rig with the final serum dose. Lyrics's catalyst proteins fused to her own adaptive nanite swarm. The rig's injector, nacelle hissed as it aligned above the crystal. Clara keyed in the sequence. Phase 1, neural calibration. On her holoscreen, synaptic graphs overlaid the crystal's bio-oscillations. Lyrics placed a trembling hand on Clara's shoulder. Ready? She squared her jaw. Ready. With a hiss of pneumatics, the injector descended. Tiny, motile, machines no larger than a speck of dust floated into view, glinting in the harsh workshop lights. Clara watched through her utility goggles as they entered Seraphine's chest cavity, vanishing into the crystal's pale depths. Instantly, alarm screamed across the console. The nanites began restructuring at hyper-accelerated rates, and the crystal's glow surged, then collapsed. The rig shuddered. Clara's heart pounded. "They're overreacting," she muttered, fingers flying over the interface. "The algorithm's unstable." She overrode the main feed, injecting a dampening subroutine designed to modulate nanite replication. Outside, the stabilizer's coils vibrated, trying to maintain equilibrium. Seraphine convulsed, her wings flexing against the cradle's restraints. A cascade of bioluminescent lines traced her throat and limbs. The biowire probes hummed, channeling the crystal's feedback through Lyrix's stabilizer. Clara held her breath. Phase 2, structural realignment. She engaged the resonance modulators, sweeping harmonics through Seraphine's bionetwork. The workshop lights dimmed as the crystal's energy field resonated in counterpoint. Suddenly, an eruption of star energy lashed out like a miniature aurora. The force field flickered and Clara was thrown backward, skidding across the grated floor. Sparks arced from the ceiling as the fusion coils overloaded. Lyrics shouted, lunging to brace the cradle. Clara scrambled back to her console. "Containment is failing," she yelled, initiating emergency protocols. But even as the rescuer's glow flared, the crystal's fractal pattern began to reform, more intricate, more luminous than before. The nanites, it seemed, were not merely repairing the damage but enhancing the crystal's native geometry. The fractures knit together in a lattice of radiant filaments. Seraphine's chest burst into a gentle golden radiance so pure it lit every corner of the workshop. Lyrix released a breath. "It's working." Clara stared, transfixed, as the final fractal strand snapped into place. The luminescence steadied. Alarms ceased. The reactor coils slowed their violent thrumming. She exhaled, knees shaking. Slowly, Seraphine rose, her great head lifting from the cradle. The crystal embedded in her breastplate shone like a miniature sun, casting prismatic refractions across the walls. She flexed her wings, now threaded with veins of living light. Clara approached, trepidation giving way to exhilaration. She placed a hand on the dragon's scale, feeling warmth and pulse, and something beyond biology. A harmonized symphony of flesh, machine, and starfire. Lyrix knelt beside Clara, eyes glistening. "You have not only saved her, you have reshaped what is possible." As Seraphine stretched her gargantuan form, the workshop doors slid open. Security teams stood at bay, awestruck. Clara wiped sweat from her brow and met their uncertain gaze. "She's alive and stable," she announced. "You have my permission to enter." Beyond the threshold, the rest of the station would bear witness to this miracle. But inside the hushed sanctum of the workshop, Clara, human mechanic, had crossed the threshold of science and myth, forging a new covenant between starfire and steel. The workshop's resonators fell silent the instant Seraphine rose. Clara Zheng, still clutching the edge of the maintenance cradle, stared as the dragon stretched her newly reinforced wings. They glowed with bioluminescent filaments, delicate, veins of starfire circuitry that pulsed in a gentle rhythm as if alive. Lyrix knelt beside Clara, bowing his head in reverence. "She's whole again," he whispered. More than whole. Seraphine's amber eyes regarded them both, brimming with ancient intelligence. And then, slowly, she began to test the limits of her rejuvenated power. A battered plasma torch clattered from its rack behind Clara, once abandoned in the frenzy of the infusion, yet it trembled midair and drifted toward the dragon's massive paw. With a thoughtful tilt of her head, Seraphine redirected it to land softly in Lyrix's waiting hand. Clara's heart hammered. "She's telekinetic. Lyrics nodded, awe evident in every scale of his crimson visage. The fusion of nanites and star crystal has awakened latent psionic pathways. She can weave energy fields now. He set the torch aside and held up a wrench. With a slight flex of his own telekinetic mastery, taught to him by Seraphine in times past, he guided the wrench through Seraphine's open maw, as if offering her a gift. She accepted it gently between her teeth, then placed it on a nearby tool bench with careful precision. Clara swallowed. That's impossible. Yet as she spoke, a scattering of loose screws and circuit boards on the floor began to levitate, orbiting Seraphine's outstretched claw like motes of dust in a sunbeam. The workshop's heavy doors swung open, and station security flooded in, weapons raised. But even they gasped as the floating toolkit assembled itself. Screws descending neatly into their sockets, circuit boards snapping into place on a damaged drone shell, and the drone's lights flickered on, rebooting with a mechanical chirp. "Holy!" one of the officers stuttered, lowering his weapon. Clara held up a calming hand. "She's repairing the drone." Her voice shook with exhilaration. The nanites augmented by the crystal are rewriting the drone's circuitry, faster than any human engineer could. Seraphine flexed her wings once more, and the graviton stabilizers glowed in time with her heartbeat. In the wash of golden light, Clara saw every molecule of dust in the air dancing like fireflies, each drawn into the dragon's orbit. The dragon exhaled softly, and the particles formed a swirling halo around her head, like a living corona of starfire. Lyrics rose, and placed a forelimb on Seraphine's flank. "You see now why our clan reveres her as the soul of suns," he said. "She is more than our protector. She is a generator of life." Clara approached, extending a gloved hand to touch the glowing latticework of Seraphine's wing. Beneath the biocircuit nodes, she felt a gentle vibration, a song that resonated through her bones. "I never imagined such a synthesis," she whispered. "It's like you've merged technology and biology at the quantum level." Seraphine emitted a low, melodic rumble, her version of laughter, before fixing Clara with a gaze that spoke across species. The workshop's lights flickered in response, dipping and rising in a visual echo of Seraphine's mood. Then, with so graceful deliberation, she lowered herself beside Clara and Lyrics, her massive head gently resting on the deck just inches from Clara's boots. Security officers clustered at the threshold, cameras rolling, but Clara found herself seeing something else, not a creature to fear, but a sentient being. An ambassador of a possibility beyond the confines of human understanding. She turned to Lyrics. "We'll need to document every resonance frequency, every nanite protocol. This could revolutionize not just medicine, but the very fabric of energy generation." Lyrics's silver-whiskered muzzle curved in a grateful smile. "With your permission," he said, "I will share the full history of Seraphine's clan, our knowledge of star crystals, our psionic traditions. Together, we can unlock new breakthroughs." Clara nodded, her mind already racing through endless equations and schematics. "We'll need a larger facility secure from interference, but first," she glanced back at Seraphine, "we celebrate this miracle." In that moment, beneath the soft glow of the dragon's restored starfire, Clara realized the magnitude of what they had achieved. An alien dragon had been reborn through human ingenuity, and in return she had gifted humanity a glimpse of something far greater than the sum of flesh and machine. Outside, the station's announcer crackled to life. "Attention all personnel. Please stand by for a special briefing on the unprecedented event at Dock 7B. Clara took a deep breath. The true dawn of a new era was about to begin. Before Clara could catch her breath, the hollow screens lining the workshop walls flickered to life with urgency. A station-wide alert scrolled across every monitor. Special Assembly and Observation Dome. All personnel advised to witness unprecedented bioenergy phenomenon. Lyrics gave Clara a gentle nod, his leonine eyes bright with excitement. They guided Seraphine through the winding corridors of Aurora's Edge, her great wings folding neatly against her sides, so as not to damage delicate conduits or bulkheads. Curious technicians and security officers parted like water before them, each pausing to marvel at the living starfire that trailed in the dragon's wake. Clara could feel the hum of Seraphine's energy even through her insulated suit, a living frequency that resonated with every metal girder and data cable in the station. At the observation dome, a vast semicircular window framed the swirling colors of the Veil Nebula beyond. Dozens of engineers, scientists, and station officials clustered on the observation deck, their voices hushed in anticipation. Clara and Lyrics took their place at the center, Seraphine reclining on the reinforced platform, her crystalline chest glowing like a miniature sun. "Citizens of Aurora's Edge," the station administrator's voice boomed through overhead speakers, trembling with awe. "Today we bear witness to a marvel beyond our wildest imaginations. Behold the rebirth of a creature we thought confined to legend, and the power it now wields." Seraphine lifted her head, her amber eyes sweeping across the crowd. Then, without warning, she inhaled deeply, filling the chamber with the soft thrum of gathering star energy. Clara felt a tingle crawl up her spine as motes of luminous dust coalesced around Seraphine's nostrils. And then came the song. It began as a low, resonant hum that vibrated through every nanograin of the observation dome's alloy. The sound rose in harmonic layers, first a deep baritone pulse, then crystalline arpeggios that danced like auroras around the rounded glass. Each tone carried with it a ripple of pure starfire energy, and as Seraphine sang, the lights in the dome brightened. Power conduits glowed in response, and dormant life support vents whispered back in harmonious counterpoint. Clara watched in awe as the assembled drones, docked shuttles, and even the station's central AI core all resonated in unison. Where the song's vibrations struck hull plating, minor fissures closed as metal realigned itself. Failing power relays surged back to full capacity, and emergency lighting circuits, long silent, flickered back to life. The Veil Nebula's starlight, pouring through the dome's viewport, seemed to intensify, as if Seraphine's song had reached across the void. When the final note faded, a hush fell over the crowd. Then came thunderous applause and tears. Lyrics bowed his head, pride and joy mingling in his expression. Clara stepped forward, heart soaring. "This," she called out, voice echoing, "is not magic. It is the unity of biology, technology, and compassion. We stand at the threshold of a new era." Over the next hours, Seraphine's song became more than spectacle. Engineers captured its frequencies for research. Medics theorized applications for regenerative therapies. Power specialists studied its resonance for sustainable energy generation. Clara found herself at the helm of coordinating these efforts, Lyrics at her side, translating ancient dragon lore into scientific protocols. As the final embers of the gathering died down, Clara slipped beside Seraphine. The dragon dipped her great head in a silent bow of gratitude, the biocircuit veins along her jaw pulsing softly in welcome. Lyrics draped an arm around Clara's shoulders. "Together," he said, voice thick with emotion, "we have forged a bridge between our peoples. May this dawn never fade." Clara looked out at the nebula beyond, vast, enigmatic, and full of promise. "The universe just got a lot bigger," she whispered. And as Aurora's Edge hummed back to life around them, she knew their story was only beginning.